y'all, welcome back to my channel. And today I wanted to do the Perfect Makeup Tag that was created by Patty Alonso and Morgan Turner. I'm a huge sucker for tags, and this one I thought was really cool. So first I want to start off with the first question, and I have them here on my phone. So the first one is, what is the perfect primer? And for me, I don't really wear primer like I used to. When I was working in an office every day, I sat at a desk with tons of lights on me, and it would get warm, and I was there for, I was in the office for, 8-9 hours. I really felt like I needed a primer to get my makeup to last. I don't really wear primers anymore. I work exclusively from home now. So even if I'm putting makeup on for the day, I don't necessarily feel the need to put a primer on. But on those days when I do go out and I do need my makeup to last, the number one primer for me is the Milk Hydro Grip. So I discovered this when it first came out, I think in I want to say 2019, and I kept buying little minis of it, and I finally decided to invest in the large one, and then the panorama hit and I just stopped wearing primers. So that's why I have quite a bit left. But I think I have this in my little casual project pan. I don't think I'm going to finish this year. I just keep forgetting about it because, again, I don't wear primer. But what I love about this one is that it's really lightweight. It does kind of have like a tackiness to it, but it's not like that. It's not gluey to the skin. It's very smooth. It doesn't, I wouldn't say that it has any sort of like blurring properties or anything like that. I think what it does is that it gives the skin a really natural canvas. So it's not super matte, it's not super dewy. I know people who have dry skin who love this. I know people who have oily skin like myself who love this. So I think it's a product that can work for everyone. I tend to wear this with dewier or more luminous foundations when I just want something that can help them grip a little bit more. My skin type is oily normal, oily combo. I get very oily in this area throughout the day, but I love a luminous foundation. So I usually pair them with this if I'm going to use a primer, and it helps them last really well. So this is my perfect primer. Next up, I have the Perfect Foundation. And this foundation, I honestly have never heard anyone but myself talk about this foundation, which I think is so crazy because I think it's really, really good. I discovered this in the clearance section of Sephora. This brand used to be in Sephora. They're not in Sephora anymore, but I know they have their own website that you can order from. And that is the Stellar Beauty Limitless Foundation. And it's actually what I'm wearing today. And I own a ton of foundations. I'm one of those people, I love trying new foundations. But for me, when I think of like the one that I need to reach for, when I know I need something that's going to last, or when I know something that is not going to be a hit or miss, and I do have foundations like that where it just depends on how my skin's doing that day, how it's going to perform. But this one is so consistent for me. It's a beautiful, natural matte finish. It's not super drying. It doesn't give your skin like a flat canvas. You still have a little bit of your natural glow showing through. It's medium to buildable. I am in the color S14, and this is actually, of all the foundations in my collection, this one is the best match for my skin tone. And I have a really hard time finding foundations that match my skin tone because I'm neutral, but I have yellow undertones, but I'm not super golden. So I can have a really hard time finding things that don't look either too neutral and kind of gray, or too warm, or too yellow and give me like a jaundiced look. This one is just sort of like perfect for me. So yes, this is what I reach for when I want like a perfect base. This is my go-to. Next up is the Perfect Concealer. And the first one I thought of is the Pat McGrath Sublime Skin Fetish Concealer. I have this in 2 shades, but this is the shade that I use on my under eyes. And this, I feel like the concealer, as far as her complexion products, is better than the foundation. I have the foundation. It's good. I don't think it's like amazing and, fantabulous and like the best thing ever. It's a decent foundation. When I wear it, I'm kind of like, yeah, it works. But the concealer, I think, is absolutely amazing. It gives great coverage without being cakey. It doesn't feel heavy. even when you powder it down, it doesn't give that really heavy cakey under eye look. And I generally hate powdering down my under eyes because I don't like the look of heavy powder under the eyes. I can powder down this concealer and it will still look really lovely. The shade that I usually use under my eyes is shade M15. And yeah, this is sort of like when I'm going for that, again, that perfect base, this is what I reach for. Next up is the Perfect powder. And I struggle with this because the two powders that I use the most are both being discontinued. So first up is the Too Faced Peach Perfect Matte Setting Powder. It's a matte setting powder, but it's so finely milled. I've used it in the winter, I've used it during the summer. It gives the skin a matte finish, but it doesn't make it flat, and it doesn't stay super matte. Like your natural oils will come through a little bit, so it will look very natural on the skin. So I was gonna pick that one, but then I was like, you know what? No, I kind of want to give love to this powder, which is the NYX High Glass Finishing Powder. And I was introduced to this by Angelica Nyquist. She raves about this powder all the time. And so I decided to try it, and then I fell in love with it, and then it was promptly discontinued. So lovely. I feel like Angelica has sort of joined the ranks of the Samantha Ravindals of like everything she loves being discontinued, which in turn means everything that we buy that she loves gets discontinued. Justice for Angelica and Samantha. That's all I have to say about that. But yes, this powder, and this is in the shade medium. This powder is lovely, and you can see it has some shimmer to it, but it doesn't look shimmery or glittery on the skin. It just gives the skin this really beautiful all over glow. It just makes you look like you have really healthy skin, and it just gives a nice blurring effect. It doesn't look heavy or cakey. It just gives the skin this just nice soft glow. And I love to use this with luminous foundations. I also use it with the Stellar, but I feel like the Stellar goes with everything, which is why I love it. But one of my favorite combos is this powder with the Anastasia Beverly Hills Luminous Foundation. I get so many compliments on my skin when I compare those two products together. Beautiful. So that is my favorite, or Perfect powder. Next up is the Perfect bronzer. And again, I feel bad about mentioning things that are like discontinued or no longer available. But at the same time, I also want to be realistic about my makeup collection and what I use. I buy makeup to use it. I love enjoy using the makeup that I own and that I purchase. And so for me, even if something is discontinued, that doesn't mean that I stop using it or that I stop loving it. So I want to be honest in my picking of the products for this tag. So for me, my Perfect bronzer, I really got into cream products over the last, I want to say 9 to 10 months. And I have been loving the Nars bronzing cream. And this is discontinued, and what I'm really hoping, they came out with this bronzing cream in their summer, I believe it was their summer solstice collection. I think that was the name of it. I'm hoping that they re-release this in, you know, like their permanent packaging and maybe, you know, give it a different name. I don't care. They just need to put this in their permanent collection because it is absolutely amazing. I use the shade Laguna, which is on the cooler side but works for my skin. And my favorite way to use this, and my favorite way to do bronzer in general now, is I have sort of a two-step bronzing process that I love. Is that I will apply my foundation, and then I will go in with my cream bronzer, and then I will powder, and then I'll go in with a powder bronzer. And it just gives the skin this like really beautiful finish. Like I love the combination of a cream bronzer and a powder bronzer together. And so what I've been doing is using this as my cream bronzer base, and then going in with any of my other powder bronzers that I own over it once I've powdered or set my face. So yes, this is amazing. I will say it's scented. It's heavily scented, and I usually don't like scents, but something about this one I find to be, it's really nostalgic. It kind of reminds me of a smell from my childhood, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but every time I open this up, I'm like, ah. But yeah, it is scented, so if that's something that you have an issue with, you know, if they do decide to re-release this, that may be something you may want to consider. But yes, the Nars Bronzing Cream in Laguna is my Perfect bronzer. Next up is the Perfect blush, and this was such a no-brainer for me because this is basically the only blush that I've been using since I bought it, even though I have another bronzer, I'm sorry, another blush in my little project pan for 2021. I haven't touched it. No, I take that back. I've touched it a few times, but I always go, no, I don't want to use it. So I think I'm just gonna abandon that because it's just not getting anywhere, and that's it because I'm using this all the time. And this is the Pat McGrath Divine Blush in Desert Orchid. This shade, OMG, this shade is so stunning. It's the perfect peachy terracotta neutral. It's very neutral. Like if you're someone who wants something that's really neutral, it's not too pink leaning, it's not too orange, this is the blush for you. For me, it has a little bit of sheen to it. I often use this over my bronzer and I don't put any highlighter on, and my skin still has this beautiful soft glow to it. I've actually not been using highlighter a whole ton this past summer because of the fact that I've been using things like this and things like the NYX High Glass Powder. I don't feel like my skin really needs it. But yeah, this is the perfect blush shade in my opinion for me. But also I feel like this is a shade that I've seen so many people with so many different skin tones rave about. People who are really pale, people who are deeper in skin tone than me have all raved about this shade because Pat McGrath's blushes are so pigmented that you can sheer them out. You know, I would say if you're on the paler side, to go in with a synthetic brush, you won't pick up as much product. That's actually what I have to do with this a lot of the time. I'm wearing it today and I went in with a natural hair brush and I really had to sort of like tap the product off and then lightly blend it in because it can get quite pigmented when you use a natural hair brush. So that would be my tip if you're pale, is to use a synthetic brush for this. For deeper skin tones, you can go in with the natural brush and get all the, the pigment that you need for it. But yeah, this is just such a beautiful, beautiful shade, and it's such a universal shade, and that's something that you can't really say about color products, makeup products a lot of the time, about them being universal. But I've been wearing this nonstop, and it's really the only blush that I want to wear right now. So yes, that is the Pat McGrath Divine Blush in Desert Orchid. And then next up, I have the Perfect Highlighter, and this came out, I believe, last year, towards the end of last year. And I have a lot of highlighters, but I haven't bought a whole lot of highlighters recently because I find that it's sort of becoming quite repetitive, the shades of highlighters. I feel like if you have one Goldie Champagne highlighter, you have them all, So if I'm buying a highlighter, it has to be something that is unique. It has to be something that really catches my eye, and that is a rare, rare thing right now. But Kailav managed to do it at the end of last year when they came out with their Space Age Prophecy highlighter. This shade, and first off, let me just give the disclaimer that this is not a shade for the faint of heart. If you are not someone who likes a really blingy, blingy highlighter, this is not the highlighter for you. If you don't like shades that are a little bit non-traditional, that aren't your run-of-the-mill golds, champagnes, rosy, pinky, peaches, if that is your realm and you just like a really natural light glow, this is not the highlighter for you, babe. It's not, and it's okay. But if you are into that kind of thing, this shade, and I'm trying to see if I can get the shift because it's so pigmented. Yeah, the light's not going to pick it up. Let me see if I rub it on my hand. Yeah, that might show it a little bit better. But the shift of this highlighter is insane, and I don't feel like I don't think I'm doing it justice here, but the shift is like a white gold to a peach to a pink, and it really depends on where you're standing and how the light is hitting your face. I was obsessed with this highlighter when I first got it. I wore it every single day, and one of the ways that I wore it is I wore it all over my face. So I wore it as a highlight, and then I tapped it over my lids. It looked amazing. I got an insane amount of compliments on my eyes that day because it looked like I put a ton of effort in. I just tapped this highlighter all over, and it was like, what are you wearing? It's amazing. This is just a beautiful multi-chrome highlighter. It's very pigmented, go in with a light hand. You can build it up to that like really insane, you know, seen from space glow, but you can diffuse it out a little bit. It's never going to be subtle. I'll just, like I said before, this is not a subtle highlighter, but you can diffuse it out a bit if you don't want that super, super heavy reflect, you know. But this is so unique in my collection. I don't have any other highlighters like this. And so for me, that alone makes it special and makes it the perfect highlighter. Next up, I have the Perfect lipstick formula. For me, I had three in mind actually, but this one went out because I just reach for these so often. But that is the Lisa Eldridge Velvet Matte lipsticks. And this is the shade, my favorite shade. I own a decent amount of these, but this is the shade, my favorite shade, and this is Velvet Dragon. See that? And it is, I mean, on camera it probably looks just like a regular orange, but the undertones of this are so unique. It's like a burnt orange, but not too burnt. It's got a hint of red in it, but not too red. When you put it on, it, depending on your skin tone, it will lean more orange or will lean a little bit more red. It has a muted quality, a dusky quality to it that a lot of other, you know, quote unquote orange lipsticks, you know, don't have. So that alone is why I love this particular shade, but the formula is fantastic. It is a bullet lipstick that is a matte. It's not super drying. It does give a very velvety finish. I can wear these. I am of the OGs, really into liquid lipstick days. Like back in the day, that's all I wore. I didn't really start buying bullet lipsticks until maybe 2 years ago. All of my lipsticks were liquid lipsticks. So I'm pretty hardcore about what qualifies as a super, you know, long lasting matte lipstick. But this can hold its own against some of my liquid lipsticks. I can put this on at the beginning of the day. I can eat, I can drink, and it'll still be on. I might have some little, you know, wearing here, but I would get that with a liquid lipstick as well. But yeah, these are so long lasting. They're so comfortable on the lips. They sort of blur the lines of the lips really nicely. So if you have very lined lips like I do, I have very, like, you know, lined and crinkly skin on my lips. So I'm always looking for something that won't emphasize that, which most liquid lipsticks do. You know, that's kind of the drawback of them. But because this is a bullet lipstick, and because the formula is so unique and it kind of has a slight blurring effect, you don't get that sort of wrinkly, crinkly lip line issue at all with these. So this is my perfect lipstick formula. The next is palette with the perfect shimmers. I struggled with this one because I have a lot of palettes that I think have amazing shimmers and metallics. But I decided to go with the first thing that came to my mind because I feel like that was what I would want. You know, that's my brain sort of telling me that's what you think is perfect. So I went with that. And for me, that is, I'm trying not to blind you, that is the Pat McGrath Subliminal palette. This is Mothership 1. And the special shades in this palette I like dream about. I really do. They're so stunning. I almost wore it today, but I wanted to get some use out of another palette that I don't use as often as I would like. And it's getting into fall season, so I really want to use that one. But I will leave what I'm wearing on my eyes in the description box below. I actually mentioned it in my favorite fall palette. So these are the shimmers, the special shades. And these two specifically are so stunning on the eyes. Like these shades just, they're so pretty. And I always for me, the thing that is a sign of how much I love something is how excited I get to use that item. You know, like when I'm like thinking about doing my makeup, if it's something that I'm like, yeah, I'll throw that on my eye, or if I'm like, I really want to use that, I'm so excited to sit down and use that. And that's how I feel about Subliminal. It's one of my favorite Pat McGrath palettes. And it's funny because when I was really like trying to decide on what Pat McGrath palettes I was interested in, that one was my least favorite. Like, I was just like, it's a boring palette, because I mean, on the surface it is. It's, you know, if you cover these up, that looks incredibly boring. But the thing about it is that these shades really do just function as anchors for, you know, the party on that side of the palette. Now, that palette makes my heart sing. It really does. And then last but not least is, what is your perfect color story? And I've said before that like I'm a huge fan of color stories. I love the idea of people curating a palette and creating a story with the colors that they choose, and that it being a really artistic endeavor. The first thing that came to mind was, and again, I feel bad about mentioning it, but I'm going to mention it anyway. It's the Melt Muerte palette. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry, because I love this palette and it deserves to be mentioned because I love it. Look at that. Look at this color story. Look at this. It's freaking stunning. It's so, and I just put my nail in the, great, that's lovely. Love that for me. I'm gonna just ignore that. This is a perfect color story to me. This is a perfect color story, and there's a reason why people are obsessed with this palette and why it sells for like $200 on Poshmark and Mercari, and it's because that whole collection from Melt was perfection. And it reminded me, you know, that palette reminds me that makeup can be really exciting and can be really creative and artistic and have a point of view. And I think that's why so many people fell in love with that palette and with that collection, is because there was such a strong point of view, and they, you know, they didn't half-ass it. It's such a beautiful color story and layout. The way the colors are arranged, the palette itself is actually so nice. I know a lot of people talk about Melt's formula and have issues with Melt's formula. I've never had an issue with Melt's formula. I don't know if I'm just like a unicorn or what, but every palette that I own from Melt, and I own a fair amount, I get along with and I can work with quite well and quite easily. So for me, I've never had any issues. I don't have anything to compare as far as like bad or good formulas. I can work with pretty much all of the formulas of the palettes that I own. That's not to say that, you know, there's not a palette out there of theirs that I don't own that, you know, I would struggle with. But the ones that I own, I have no issues with. And for me, Muerte is probably the easiest as far as blendability, color story. Like, you don't have to do a whole lot with this palette as far as getting it to work and creating a cohesive story on your eye, because color story in your eye, excuse me, because of the way that it's laid out. And for me, I am a sucker for red eyeshadow, and I often would just do a look with these reds, and then I would go in with a red metallic. Sometimes I would reach for the red in, you know, Pat McGrath Decadence or Bronze Seduction, or I would go in with like the blue shimmer in this on the lid with the red mattes. Chef's kiss, so pretty. It's just one of those palettes, again, that I get so excited about using, because I open it up and I'm just like, this is top tier color story right here, top tier. So yes, and that is everything that I have for today. Those are all of my perfect makeup items. Let me know in the comments what are some of your favorite makeup items, whether it be the palettes, foundation, whatever. I'll see you guys in my next video. If you like this video, please remember to hit the like button and to hit the subscribe button, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.